Today, we're looking at Robert Oster Astorquiza Rot. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, Robert Oster Astorquiza Rot is a red ink. But before we get to the writing samples, let's take a look at the sciencey bits. Up first is the chromatography. And I agree with Vita that I've done a ton of chromatographies, and doing multiple chromatographies over the years has taught me a lot. Now, the one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down, I put it in water for 10 to 15 seconds and watch it creep up. And what we see here is that it moves. It's pink and it works its way up to the dark red that is the ink. Now, the one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. I then let it in the water for 10 to 15 seconds, and it has no change for being allowed to dry. Good news for cleaning out of your pens, bad news for staying on the page. But that's an up to you. I let this ink smear dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, you can't tell at all what was there. It completely reacted and completely smudged all over. It blended with the yellow highlighter to make an ugly color. Water completely moved it off the page. It's like it's not there. Gone. Pen flush, oddly, left a little bit of the pink behind. But I think that's because the pen flush damages the paper some, allowing it to seep in just a little bit more. But it's going to take it out of your pens with no problem. You're not going to need to get to pen flush. And bleach completely removes it from the page, but there is no need to ever use bleach to clean this out of your pen. Now, this is a bell curve for a normal distribution. For the 365 inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5. Normal is the range from 2.1 to 2.9. Robert Oster Astorquiza Rot has a viscosity of 1.85. That makes this a very wet flowing ink. Now, as easily as it's reactivated from water, I expect it to be very much like water. It flows very well. That's especially good if you have some pens that are a little more difficult or choosy about their ink, unless that pen needs a thicker ink. Then this would not be good. It would vomit ink all over the place. Now, this bell curve is for the average dry time. For the 365 inks I've tested, I've found the average dry time is 17 seconds. Normal dry time is the range from 13 to 21 seconds, and Robert Oster Astorquiza Rot has an average dry time of 8 seconds. Not a fast drying ink. It is not advertised as a fast drying ink, but this ink dries fast. We see that its dry time is in the red, as in it's drying really quick when it touches the page. Now, I can't speak for everybody's experiences, but for me, when I was doing my writing samples, that is what I got. How do I find my average dry time? I use my writing samples done with an extra fine and medium nib on Clairefontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. Let's take a look at the writing sample. I got this ink in sample form. And to keep writing samples consistent, as always, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's look at Clairefontaine. We get no bleed, no ghosting. With the 1.1, we get no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do get some color variation, not tons of it, but we do get a nice, rich red. Onto the extra fine, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Some decent color variation, not huge amounts that jump out at you, but it is there. 3 seconds to dry. With the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, nice color variation, 8 seconds to dry. And when we look at the scrubby, we see what kind of color variation we can expect. We see that it goes from very light to quite dark in both the extra fine and the medium. And on the smudge, could I recover it? Yes, I could recover if I smudge my hand as I'm writing. On to Tomoe River. We have spots of bleed. This spot of bleed, looking at how directional it is, that might be me being aggressive because it doesn't show up with the extra fine, it shows up with the medium, so that could have been me.
but it doesn't look like there's bleed. There's going to be ghosting. It's Tomoe River. With the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation. We lost it here. That's from the paper. The paper causes it because it takes longer to dry. It causes it to lose that color variation. It lets the ink settle out. With the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We do get minor, very minor color variation. Some of that color variation I think is lost because of the tone of the paper. 6 seconds to dry. With a medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Less color variation. 17 seconds to dry. So almost 3 times longer for going to a medium. Looking at the scrubbies, we see that we have very little color variation that is going to happen. So it's not unexpected in the writing. On the smear, we're not going to be able to recover that smear. Just watch your hands when you're writing on this paper. Looking at Rhodia, we have no bleeding, no ghosting. With the 1.1, it definitely looks darker than it did on the Clairefontaine. And it looks thicker. Makes me wonder if I actually wrote this one with the medium. I think I might have forgot, and this is not the stub, but that's the medium. Comparing it to the Tomoe River, we have no spread. So I think I had to write this one with a medium. I think I forgot it. So we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Decent amounts of color variation, but it does appear darker. On to the extra fine. We have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Some nice color variation. Subtle color variation as you're writing. It's nice and subtle in its transitions. 3 seconds to dry. Medium nib. No feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. Again, color variation, and it's nice subtle transitions. There's not a start from a light to a very dark. So that's nice. 8 seconds to dry. And looking at the scrubby, we can see how much color variation we can expect. Goes from quite light to quite dark in both cases. And on the smear, you may be able to recover it, you may not. This is kind of a toss-up. Next, I'm looking at Northbook's paper. Northbook's paper, 90 GSM. We have the start of some bleed, but not really. It's sinking deep into the paper, but it doesn't really, it just seems like if you're using a very, very wet, very broad nib, you might experience bleed with this. But with what I have, I wouldn't really call what I'm seeing here as bleed. We have no ghosting. With the 1.1, no feather, no spread, no echo, no halo, no sheen, no real color variation. We've lost it. We're going to see why. On the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no color variation at all is seen in the writing. 2 seconds to dry, so it got absorbed in there much faster. And that's where the color variation went away. Because it got absorbed in faster, it didn't have the time to really set up as different tones. With the medium, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, minor spots of color variation. We see it on the K, we see it a little on the, but not a lot else. So only in spots where it went very heavy do we get minor bits that show up. 3 seconds to dry, and that's where our color variation went away. Looking at the scrubby, we would hope to see color variation. It shows a little in the scrubby, but it does not show up in the writing really. And on a smear, you are not going to be able to recover this if you smear it. If you smear it while you're writing. You just don't get to see enough of it, which is weird because it absorbs so fast, you would almost think that you could. Then I go to field notes. Now field notes for me in the a lot did not perform very well, but in this case it did perform well. So this ink would be good for use with field notes paper. We get no real bleed. We get spots where it looks like it wants to start coming through on a scrubby where you put it down real heavy, but that's it. No ghosting. With the 1.1, we have no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. It's lost here. Again, it's going to be a faster absorbing paper, and that's going to be the reason, just like with the Northbooks. On the extra fine, no feather, no spread, no halo, no sheen. We get a nice color. 2 seconds to dry. With the medium, we do start to see some feathering. I see it in the M, the hyphen. I see it on the. This is all minor feathering. I don't think it would be so distracting it really bothered you, but it is there. You see it a lot on the G of dog, a lot in seconds. So there's quite a bit of feathering. We have no real spread, no halo, no sheen, almost no color variation to really speak of. Although in the scrubby for both the extra fine and the medium, it looks like you would get some. We really don't. But on the smear you would be able to get it. I think I missed it, 2 seconds to dry on the medium nib. So this is very absorbent paper. And that's what I have for the writing sample.
Instead of finding inks that look like Robert Oster Astorquiza Rot, I would prefer to find an ink that really complements its color on the page. Being a vivid red, I really thought about a vivid blue. For that, I chose Private Reserve Tropical Blue because of how vivid it is. Before I give my opinion on this ink, I'm going to ask if you've enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if it's your first time here, I would invite you to subscribe. To make sure I have a range of experience with this inks, I do the writing samples. I then put it into a different pen and use it for a day. And then I put it into a Pilot Metropolitan with a medium nib to take my notes for this video. So what do I think of Robert Oster's Astoria Red? It performs well with any nib and paper. And if you like red inks, this is the red ink you want. If you have a need for a lot of red ink, this is the red ink you want. So now the big question, would I buy a bottle of this ink? I would not, because I do not use red a lot. I understand I can use it for corrections, and just because of the sensitivity of schools with using red ink in correction, I don't use it. So I tend to use a lot of magentas because no students using magenta. The result is I use a lot of magenta for my own grading. I do have a red ink that I use quite frequently, but that's because I have a large bottle and it's from when I started teaching. I have still been working my way through that bottle of red ink. Thanks for watching.